students, welcome to the second part of biological classification. In this portion, we are discussing types of classification. So when scientists were classifying organisms, different scientists classified organisms on the basis of different observations. So they gave different types of classification. What were these types of classification? Let's see. Biological classification. Under this, we are going to discuss types of classification. First, I would like to ask you one question. What is the basis of classification for classifying plants and animals? We have discussed it and I am sure that you know this already. So yes, the basis is morphological characters. What is classification of living organisms? Classifying living organisms into groups based on certain sets of characteristics. What is a characteristic? Now, a question comes, what is this characteristic that we are talking about again and again? This characteristic is the feature or the quality that belongs to a particular organism. For example, I am a human being, I can walk on two legs. So walking is my feature, walking is my quality. So that is known as my characteristic. Look, the birds can fly. They are having one common feature. So both three belong to one particular group. Now, based on these characteristics, classification is divided into, first is artificial classification and second is natural classification. Artificial classification. Classification on the basis of one or two morphological characters. So this classification of artificial classification is based on one or two morphological characters. And in this, overall morphology is not considered. Fine? Overall morphology is not considered. And it is adopted by which scientist? By Pliny the Elder for the animals and on the basis of habitat, that they live on land or air, on water. Then, finally, this classification was proposed by Carolus Linnaeus. Linnaeus classified animals and plants on the basis of artificial classification. So, this is scientist Linnaeus. You can see here Carolus Linnaeus. He is the founder of artificial classification. Natural classification. So classification on the basis of complete morphology. Okay, not only one characteristic, not only two characteristic or three or four. It is based on the complete morphological profile of a particular plant or animal. Maximum characters are taken as base in the classification. So maximum characters, as much as characters we can take, we will take them in this natural classification. For example, in the classification of a plant, so its characters are stem, roots, leaves, flower, etc. So all these will be considered. And the first natural system of plant classification was proposed by Schimper and it was followed by Eichler. So this is the scientist Schimper. He is Schimper who proposed this classification of natural type and it was followed by Eichler in 1833. Now I am going to ask you a few questions based over this lecture. First, what are the types of biological classification? Let me test your knowledge now. What are the types of biological classification that I have discussed in this lecture? Yes, artificial classification and natural classification. Classification proposed by Linnaeus is which one? Linnaeus proposed which type of classification? Yes, artificial classification. The first natural system of plant classification was introduced by which scientist? Yes, you can name it. Exactly. Scientist Schimper. So students, this is all about types of classification. Hope you have understood it very easily. It's not tough. So in our next part, now discuss history of taxonomy. This is again divided into two subparts, history of taxonomy part 1 and history of taxonomy part 2. So watch the next video based on history of taxonomy 1.